In the farthest reaches of the galaxy, the Lirathi world of Cerithia was dying. Its emerald forests, once teeming with life, now trembled under the shadow of an approaching threat. Ships, black and angular, hovered over the horizon, their hulls gleaming with menace. The Lirathi people, delicate and graceful beings, had never known true war. Their civilization thrived on music, art, and careful harmony with their world. But harmony alone could not protect them from the marauding Zirvax, an alien empire that had conquered planet after planet with brutal efficiency. Among the Lirathi, panic spread faster than fire through dry grass. Their leaders convened in the High Council chamber, a building of translucent crystal that reflected the fading light of Cerithia's twin suns. The council debated their options, their voices trembling with urgency. "We cannot fight them," said Aelira, the council's youngest diplomat. "Our weapons are weak and our soldiers are untrained in the art of war. If we stay, we will be destroyed within days." Another counselor, Valus, a veteran of planetary defense, shook his head. "We cannot leave. Cerithia is our home, but if we reach out, perhaps some distant ally might come to our aid. Someone strong enough to challenge the Zirvax." Aelira's eyes widened. "The Coalition? They will not intervene. They fear conflict. They fear the Zirvax. We must send a call to the galaxy ourselves. Make them see our need." Perhaps, and just perhaps, the council agreed, though their hope was fragile. The Lirathi had heard legends of species who would answer such calls. Mighty empires, ancient alliances, or mercenary fleets. But in recent centuries, those stories were just that. Stories. Most species turned a blind eye to distant trouble, believing it would never touch them. The Lirathi engineers and communication specialists worked tirelessly. They built a signal unlike any the galaxy had received before, a message that carried not only words but the urgency, the fear, and the hope of an entire people. It was encoded in a spectrum of light and sound, a combination of frequencies that would pierce the void and reach even the farthest star systems. Days passed. The signal shot through space like a beacon, crossing countless light years. The council watched the stars every night, hoping, praying that someone, anyone, would respond. But none did. Then, far from Cerithia, in a system known for its harsh deserts and deadly storms, a small fleet received the signal. These were humans known as Deathworlders, trained and conditioned to survive worlds that would kill ordinary beings in hours. Their leader, Commander Jarek Thorne, listened to the signal with an expression that was equal parts curiosity and determination. "Sir," said his communications officer, a young human named Mara. "It's unusual. The call, it's more than a distress signal. There's something different about it. They're not just asking for help, they're pleading." Jarek leaned back in his chair, eyes narrowing. "Interesting. And dangerous, I'd say. If someone is desperate enough to reach out across the galaxy, they are in real trouble." He paused, then smiled faintly. "Sounds like our kind of problem." The Deathworlders were not part of any galactic coalition. They answered only to their own code, one that valued survival, courage, and the protection of the helpless. Most species considered them reckless or terrifying, for humans had a reputation for thriving where others could not. But when a call for help reached their ears, they could not ignore it. Ignoring it was not human nature. Jarek called his fleet together. "We have a choice," he said, his voice calm but firm. "We can leave it to others and watch a civilization fall. Or we can go. We can face whatever awaits and do what humans have always done. Survive. And in surviving, help others survive too." The crew, hardened by years of surviving the deadliest planets, nodded without hesitation. This was not a question of duty, it was instinct. Meanwhile, on Cerithia, the Lirathi continued their preparations. They had no weapons capable of stopping the Zirvax, so they focused on survival strategies. Civilians were evacuated into protected shelters, and researchers began working on defensive technologies, hoping that even small improvements could make a difference. Among them was Terran, a young scientist with a deep fascination for the stars. Terran had spent years studying alien civilizations, dreaming of the day the galaxy might answer their plight. When the Deathworlders' signal finally reached them, delayed but unmistakable, she could hardly believe it. "They are coming," she whispered to Aelira, eyes wide with hope. "Humans, they are coming." The arrival of the humans, however, would be unlike anything the Lirathi had imagined. These were not gentle saviors. They were Deathworlders, Humans who had walked through fire, survived acid storms, battled predators that could crush a starship hull, and emerged victorious every time. Their ships were rugged, heavily armored, and bristling with technology adapted for the deadliest conditions. As the humans approached Cerithia, the Lirathi watched in awe. Myths about human fragility were shattered immediately. Here were beings who could land on molten plains, toxic swamps, and freezing wastelands without flinching. Their very presence radiated resilience. Commander Jarek's ship pierced Cerithia's atmosphere with precise skill. On board, the crew prepared for anything. They didn't know what awaited them on the surface. Could they communicate with the Lirathi? Would the Zirvax attack immediately? It did not matter. Humans never backed down from the unknown. The first sight of the Lirathi cities stunned the human crew. Elegant towers of crystal and light shimmered under the twin suns, untouched by weapons or industry, but now under the threat of destruction. The contrast between beauty and danger fascinated Jarek. On the surface, Elira and Terran watched the human ships descend. They actually came, Elira breathed. I thought it was only a hope, a story. But they came. Humans. Deathworlders. Whatever they are, they came for us. When the humans finally set foot on Cerithia, the Lirathi could see the difference immediately. They were taller, stronger, and strangely calm in the face of the planet's hazards. Poisonous plants that made Lirathi sneeze and wheeze barely bothered the humans. Sharp, predatory birds that swooped down on native creatures ignored them completely. Jarek stepped forward, scanning the Lirathi with his sharp eyes. "We received your signal," he said in the universal translator tone, steady and clear. "You are in danger. We are here to help. Do not panic." The Lirathi stared, unsure whether to trust him. How could fragile-looking creatures wield such confidence? Terran finally stepped forward. You are here to help us?" she asked, her voice shaking with emotion. Jarek's smile was faint but reassuring. "Yes, but first we need to understand the land, the enemy, and your people. Then we fight. We survive. That's what humans do. That's what Deathworlders do." Over the next few hours, humans began moving through the forests, mapping the terrain, identifying hazards, and assessing where the Zirvax might strike first. They worked with a precision and efficiency that left the Lirathi amazed. Every movement, every plan seemed designed to maximize survival and minimize waste. Terran and Elira observed quietly, slowly realizing that these humans were unlike any species they had ever encountered. They did not fear the deadliest predators or the harshest environments. They seemed to draw strength from danger itself, thriving where others would collapse. As night fell on Cerithia, a new sense of hope spread among the Lirathi. Perhaps survival was possible. Perhaps the legends about distant heroes were true. Perhaps just this once, the galaxy had answered their plea, not with diplomacy, not with hesitation, but with the fiercest survivors of all, human Deathworlders. And far above the forests and crystalline towers, Jarek watched the stars, already planning the next move. The Zirvax would come. They always did. But humanity did not fear death. Humanity thrived on challenges. And the Lirathi, whether they realized it yet or not, had just discovered what the galaxy had underestimated for centuries. Humans could survive anything, and help others survive as well. The first spark of hope had ignited. The battle for Cerithia was just beginning. The sun of Cerithia rose over the jagged forests, casting long shadows across the crystal towers of the Lirathi cities. The humans, led by Commander Jarek Thorne, stepped off their ships and into a world that would have broken almost any other species within hours. Poisonous mists rolled through the valleys, strange predators with armored hides prowled the shadows, and sharp rocks jutted from the ground like natural spears. Yet the humans moved with confidence as if every deadly hazard was familiar to them. Jarek surveyed the terrain with calm eyes. "This world is more hostile than the message suggested," he said to Mara, his communications officer, who adjusted sensors on her wrist. "But it's nothing we haven't faced before. Keep your scanner active. I want every predator, every poisonous plant, every unstable cliff mapped by tonight." The Lirathi watched in awe. Their own scouts had struggled just to survive short excursions outside the city. The humans, on the other hand, strode through dangerous swamps and volcanic plains without hesitation, moving as if the planet itself was merely a playground. Terran, the young Lirathi scientist, followed cautiously. How can you survive here?" she asked, voice tinged with fear and wonder. Jarek glanced at her, a small smile on his face. We survive because we have to. Because giving up isn't an option. The universe doesn't care if you live or die. You make it care by proving you can adapt. Over the next hours, the Deathworlders began surveying Sirithia systematically. Teams were dispatched to the forests, the mountains, and the wetlands. They mapped natural hazards and identified choke points where enemy forces might attack. Mara's sensors detected high concentrations of venomous spores in the lower valleys, while Jarek's ground teams discovered a series of natural caves and ridges that could be turned into defensive positions. The Lirathi, who had lived on this planet for millennia, were astonished. You see dangers that we have never noticed, said Valus, the veteran counselor. And yet, you move through them without hesitation. Jarek crouched to examine a cluster of poisonous ferns, plucking a sample and sniffing it carefully. Everything on this planet can kill you, he said, but it can also be a weapon. Learn the rules and you can use the environment against your enemy. Elira and Terran watched quietly as the humans began organizing the city's defenses. They directed human teams to reinforce the walls with energy barriers, place hidden traps along likely enemy routes, and train small squads of Lirathi volunteers in the art of survival. The humans' approach was unconventional. They did not simply rely on weapons or technology. They used the planet itself. Thorny vines were sharpened into natural barricades, toxic swamps were diverted toward likely enemy paths, and even the local wildlife was studied for ways to control or repel intruders. Every hazard became a tool. Every danger became an advantage. By midday, the Lirathi volunteers were exhausted. They had never trained for combat, never walked through a forest where every step could mean death. Yet under the guidance of the humans, they began to feel a new confidence. They learned to move silently, to observe predators without panicking, to improvise weapons from their surroundings. One young Lirathi named Silen struggled to keep pace with the humans. A large predatory bird swooped down, talons scraping the ground near her feet. She froze, heart pounding, but a human nearby, Rory, grabbed her arm and pulled her into a small depression in the earth. Move with them, not against them, he instructed gently. See danger before it sees you. Control fear, don't let it control you. Silen's eyes widened as the bird circled and flew away. For the first time, she understood that the human's strength was not just physical, it was mental. They remained calm under pressure, adapted instantly, and turned fear into a weapon. Meanwhile, in the city, Jarek held a council with Elira, Terran, and Valus. We need to prepare for the Zirvak's arrival, he said, pointing to a star map projected above the table. They will strike at the weakest point first. That's probably the southern wetlands, where defenses are minimal and visibility is low. Valus frowned, but that is where most of our civilians are concentrated. They cannot be moved quickly enough. Jarek nodded. Then we make that area a trap. We'll lure them in, and when they think they have the advantage, we'll turn the terrain against them. Your people will fight, but they will not face this alone. Terran hesitated. Are you certain this will work? They are far stronger than us, far faster, and they kill without hesitation. Jarek's gaze was steady. I don't know if it will work, but I do know that humans never give up, and if your people trust us and fight with us, you have a chance. That's all anyone can ask for. The humans split into squads to implement the plan. Some worked to fortify the city itself, reinforcing walls and setting up energy shields. Others moved into the surrounding forests and swamps, planting traps, constructing ambush points, and mapping escape routes. The Lirathi learned quickly, guided by human expertise and inspired by their fearlessness. As the sun set, the southern wetlands glowed with an eerie light. Mist hung low and poisonous gases curled above stagnant pools. The humans had placed tripwires, traps, and hidden sensors, turning the seemingly dead landscape into a deadly maze for invaders. Terran watched the setup from a high ridge, awe written across her face. I never imagined our world could become an advantage, she murmured. But with them, it can be. Jarek approached quietly. It is an advantage. Only if you understand it, respect it, and fight with it. Your world can be more than a home. It can be a weapon. That is what makes Deathworlders different. That is what makes humans different. Night fell completely, bringing with it dangers that were invisible in daylight. Predators emerged from the forests, and the poisonous fog thickened. The humans moved confidently, scanning the surroundings and guiding small groups of Larathi through safe paths. Mara's voice came over the comm link. "Commander, I'm detecting movement in the eastern ridge. Unknown life forms possibly scouting the city." Jarek nodded. "Good, we'll use this to our advantage. Prepare the ambush points. Let them think they are safe. Let them learn that Cyrithia is not undefended." The humans and their Larathi trainees moved silently into position. They waited in the shadows using the natural cover of the terrain. Every sound was calculated, every movement purposeful. The invaders, if they approached, would be walking into a trap of nature, technology, and human ingenuity. Taryn observed quietly from behind a ridge. She realized that survival was not just about strength. It was about strategy, adaptability, and courage. And humans, she thought, had all three in abundance. By the end of the night, the humans had mapped the entirety of the surrounding terrain and prepared the city for the expected assault. They had trained dozens of Larathi in basic combat and survival techniques, giving hope to a population that had almost given up. As dawn approached, a quiet sense of determination settled over Cyrithia. The Zirvax would come as surely as the sun rose each day. But this time the Larathi were not alone. They had humans beside them, creatures who could survive what no one else could, and who had already begun to turn Cyrithia's deadly landscapes into a weapon. Jarek stood on the highest ridge, looking over the wetlands. "They will come," he said to no one in particular. "And when they do, they will learn that humans do not fight alone, and they do not fear the deadliest worlds." Taryn stood beside him, feeling a newfound hope. "Then we fight," she said, her voice firm. "We fight with them." The humans, confident and prepared, had already begun moving through the forests again, checking traps, teaching Larathi squads, and preparing for the inevitable first clash. They were methodical, fearless, and relentless, a force shaped by worlds where survival was the only rule. And far above, the stars glimmered as if watching, waiting to see if the galaxy had underestimated humanity once again. The stage was set. The humans had arrived, the Larathi had hope, and the first battle for Cyrithia was no longer a question of if, it was a question of when. The sun had barely risen when the first signs of the Zirvax fleet appeared on the horizon. Dark shapes cut through Cyrithia's twin suns, casting long, menacing shadows over the forests and wetlands. The humans were ready. The Larathi, though still learning, stood beside them, hearts pounding but faces resolute. Commander Jarek Thorne scanned the skies from a ridge. "There they are," he said calmly, voice low but steady. "No panic. Follow the plan. Remember what I taught you, the planet is our ally. Every hazard, every predator, every swamp, we use them." Mara, at his side, tapped the sensor array on her wrist. Multiple ships descending. Ground troops detected near the wetlands. "They are moving fast, but our traps are ready." The Zirvax ships began landing, sleek and sharp-edged, like predators designed for war. Their ground forces spread quickly, advancing into the toxic swamps and dense forests. They were confident. After all, no species had ever survived a direct clash with them. But humans thrived where others perished. Jarek split his squads into multiple units, positioning humans and Larathi in strategic locations. Every trap, every hidden barricade, and every natural hazard was now a weapon in their hands. The first Zirvax patrol entered the southern wetlands, unaware of the humans lying in wait. Hidden behind thick ferns and rocks, the Deathworlders observed silently. Jarek gave a subtle signal and the first traps were triggered. Razor-sharp vines coated with a mild paralytic agent whipped out from the marsh, ensnaring several enemy soldiers. The Zirvax roared in confusion and pain, their confidence shaking. Elira watched from a safe distance, eyes wide. They are using our land against them," she whispered. "I've never seen anything like this." Jarek's squad moved swiftly, striking from the shadows. Humans didn't just fight, they adapted. As the Zirvax recovered, the humans changed their tactics on the fly. One group led enemy troops into a natural mud pit, where venomous plants lurked beneath. Another group flanked from higher ground, using gravity and terrain to their advantage. The Larathi, inspired by the humans, began to act. Taryn directed small squads, showing them how to use rocks, vines, and fallen logs as weapons. Their movements were hesitant at first, but each successful ambush gave them confidence. For the first time, they felt that survival was possible. In the center of the wetlands, a human squad led by Rory faced a group of Zervax soldiers. The creatures were stronger and faster, but Rory did not hesitate. He dodged, struck, and used the terrain with lethal precision. A nearby patch of toxic swamp was ignited, sending thick, choking smoke into the enemy ranks. The Zervax struggled, coughing and stumbling while humans picked them off one by one. Jarek's voice came over the comlink. Remember, don't fight where they expect you. Lead them into danger. Use the land. Use the hazards. Stay calm, stay sharp. Despite their fear, the Lirathi were beginning to understand. Silen, the young trainee, led a small squad into a narrow canyon where sharp stalactites hung overhead. As the Zervax pursued, humans triggered hidden tripwires, dropping the stalactites onto the enemy. The ground shook with the impact, and the remaining soldiers scattered. Silen's eyes shone with excitement and fear. She realized she could fight, survive, and even influence the outcome of this battle. The Zervax were unprepared for such tactics. Their confidence, which had carried them across countless worlds, was shaken. Every attack seemed to be anticipated, every trap expected. The humans moved with the precision of predators who knew the terrain better than anyone. In the city, Elira and Valus coordinated evacuation and medical support, ensuring that civilians were safe. The humans had also trained teams to assist with these operations. Despite the chaos, Cerithia itself became a fortress. The elegant crystal towers, once purely decorative, were now fortified with energy shields and barricades. Hours passed. The clash in the wetlands was brutal but controlled. The Zervax realized they could not simply charge and win. For every step they advanced, humans and Lirathi blocked, ambushed, and countered. Jarek led a team deeper into the enemy ranks, striking at their command units. Humans did not fear death. They calculated risk and adapted instantly. Every move was tactical, every strike precise. Even when surrounded, they fought with calm efficiency. One human, Kale, was trapped briefly by a squad of Zervax soldiers. Instead of panicking, he used the swamp beneath him. He kicked aside a patch of mud, causing it to collapse under the enemy's feet. They fell, flailing, giving Kale the chance to escape. Such improvisation was typical for humans, a combination of instinct, skill, and fearless creativity. By midday, the Zervax began retreating from the wetlands. Their losses were higher than expected. Even the Lirathi were amazed. They had watched their cities fall in imagination, yet here they were, seeing the impossible unfold. Taryn moved among the survivors, tending to the wounded and organizing squads. We can fight," she said softly, almost to herself. "We can survive. Because of them. Because of humans." The humans regrouped, scanning the battlefield for remaining threats. Jarek looked over the wetlands, noting areas that could be reinforced or improved. "We've won this skirmish, but the Zervax will return," he said. "Next time, they will come stronger. We must adapt faster, think smarter, and use every advantage this world offers." At dusk, the surviving Zervax forces retreated to their ships. Their morale was shaken. They had underestimated not only the Lirathi, but the humans beside them. These Deathworlders had survived hazards that would have killed ordinary soldiers, and they had turned the environment itself into a weapon. The Lirathi gathered in the city square, exhausted, but elated. Their home had been defended, and their people had survived the first real test. Elira looked at the humans and said, "You have shown us strength we never imagined, not just in battle but in spirit. You fight for others, and for that you are remarkable." Jarek nodded, brushing dust from his uniform. "We fight because we must. Survival is not about power. It's about courage, adaptability, and the willingness to face danger head-on. You have the same potential. This planet can be your strength, not your weakness." Taryn, her hands trembling from adrenaline, stepped forward. I want to learn more. Teach us everything. Not just to survive, but to protect our home, our people, and each other." Jarek smiled faintly. "Good, we will teach. But remember, survival is not just knowledge, it's instinct. You must combine what you learn with courage, adaptability, and determination. Only then will you truly thrive." As night fell over Cerithia, the humans moved quietly through the forests, checking traps and reinforcing positions. Every predator, every poisonous plant, every hazard was accounted for. The Zervax might return, stronger and smarter, but humans had shown the Lirathi that even the deadliest enemy could be faced and overcome. The first clash was over, but the war had only begun. The Zirvax had learned that Cerithia was not undefended. The Lyrathi had learned that hope was not futile. And the humans had demonstrated why the galaxy had underestimated them for so long. They could survive anywhere, adapt to any danger, and inspire courage in others. Above the city, Yarrick looked to the stars, already planning the next move. "They will come again," he said quietly. "And when they do, we will be ready." Silence, standing beside him, nodded. "And we will fight with you," she said, her voice steady. "We will survive, because you have shown us how." In the quiet aftermath, Cerithia seemed alive in a new way. The forests, the swamps, and the crystal towers were no longer just a home. They were part of a larger strategy, a living ally in the fight for survival. And in the hearts of the Lyrathi, a spark had ignited, the knowledge that their people could endure and perhaps even thrive, with humans by their side. The first clash had ended in victory, small but significant. The Zirvax had underestimated Cerithia, underestimated the Lyrathi, and most of all underestimated humans. The galaxy would soon learn that when Deathworlders answered a call for help, even the most desperate worlds could become places of hope, strength, and resilience, and so the battle for Cerithia continued, with humans and Lyrathi side by side, ready for whatever came next. The battle for Cerithia had reached a critical stage. The first clash in the wetlands had shown both sides that the war would not be easy. The Zirvax had retreated, licking their wounds and reorganizing for a larger strike. But the humans, the Deathworlders, were already preparing for the counterattack, and the Lyrathi were learning faster than anyone could have imagined. Commander Jarek Thorne gathered his team on a high ridge overlooking the southern plains. The terrain was rough, filled with jagged rocks, swamps, and thick forests, perfect for ambushes. Yarek's eyes scanned the horizon, calculating angles, distances, and opportunities. "They'll return stronger," he said, his voice calm. "We need a plan that hits them hard before they can regroup. This world is our ally. Every hazard can be a weapon. Every corner can be a trap, and we will use it all." Mara adjusted her scanners, tracking Zirvax fleet movements. "They've repaired most of their ground troops. Estimates say double what we faced before. Their ships are reorganizing in orbit. They're not expecting resistance like last time, but they'll be prepared for traps." Jarek nodded. "Good. That means we hit them where they least expect it." The humans and Lyrathi began working together on a massive scale. Hidden pitfalls were reinforced with sharpened rocks. Poisonous plants were strategically relocated to narrow pathways where Zirvax soldiers would be forced to walk. Traps were linked to simple mechanical triggers, allowing humans and Lyrathi to control them from a distance. The very land of Cerithia became a weapon, bending the deadly environment to human strategy. The Lyrathi volunteers had grown braver. They moved through the forests and swamps confidently, carrying supplies, assisting in setting traps, and observing the humans closely. Every human action seemed to teach them not just survival, but thinking ahead, predicting the enemy, and using fear and danger to their advantage. Silen, who had struggled during the first clash, now led a team to reinforce the eastern ridge. "Follow the humans' patterns," she instructed. "Observe, anticipate, and never panic. If we act together, we can control the battlefield." By the afternoon, the Zirvax fleet began descending again. They were larger, faster, and angrier than before, determined to crush Cerithia and eliminate its defenders. The humans had expected this, and every squad was in position, hidden among cliffs, swamps, and forests. Energy barriers flashed along the city's perimeter, ready to protect civilians while the fighters moved beyond the walls to engage the enemy. Jarek signaled with a small light on his wrist. The ambush was set. As the Zirvax ground forces entered the southern plains, traps triggered in perfect sequence, spikes emerged from swampy mud, nets fell from trees, and sharp boulders rolled down hillsides, scattering the first wave. The Zirvax were stunned. "They fight differently," one soldier growled. "The land itself turns against us." From hidden positions, humans struck. They moved with speed and precision, dodging attacks, luring soldiers into more hazards, and cutting off reinforcements. Rory led a squad through dense forest, using shadows and sound to disorient the enemy. Venomous plants were used not to kill directly, but to slow and confuse the invaders. The Lyrathi, now trained and confident, followed suit. Terran guided squads through narrow canyons and high ridges, flanking Zirvax forces that thought themselves safe. The combination of human strategy and Lyrathi knowledge of the terrain was deadly. The Zirvax had expected easy victories, but every step forward was met with calculated resistance. Jarek noticed a group of Zirvax commanders attempting to rally troops near a volcanic fissure. He gestured to Mara. "We cut them off. Now." A human squad, including Kyle and another veteran, moved with silent precision. They triggered hidden mechanisms, releasing smoke and debris that blocked the enemy's retreat. Using the fissure's heat and gas, they forced the Zirvax into narrow corridors, where human sharpshooters and Lyrathi archers waited. Every strike was measured, every movement anticipated. Valus, watching from the city walls, whispered in awe, "They are not just fighting, they are orchestrating the entire battlefield. Our people have never seen anything like this." Hours passed as the battle raged. The Zirvax tried multiple strategies, but the humans adapted instantly. When enemies tried to flank, humans anticipated and countered. When enemies used ranged attacks, humans used terrain to shield themselves and strike back unexpectedly. Every human decision combined instinct, experience, and an understanding of the environment that no other species had achieved. At one point, a Zirvax strike team broke through the outer defenses, moving toward the city. Silence Squad engaged them, using every technique the humans had taught. Venomous vines ensnared one soldier, while another slipped into a mud pit camouflaged with foliage. The remaining invaders hesitated, unsure of the environment. By the time reinforcements arrived, the squad had neutralized the threat. Taryn ran to Jarek as the battle slowed. "They are stronger than we imagined," she said, panting. "But we can fight them. We can win. Because of you, because of the humans," Jarek nodded. "You have learned fast. But this is only the beginning. The Zirvax will come again, bigger and smarter. We need a plan for the next wave, a counteroffensive that ends the battle on our terms." That night, humans and Lyrathi gathered around temporary fires. They treated the wounded, repaired traps, and reinforced positions. The Lyrathi marveled at the humans' endurance. While most species would collapse after hours of battle, the Deathworlders continued to move, planning, strategizing, and preparing for the next engagement. Elira approached Jarek. "Your people, they do not tire. They adapt to every danger, every enemy. It is extraordinary," Jarek shrugged. "We survive because we have to. We thrive on the impossible. And now your people are learning to do the same. That is the real strength." Taryn approached him as well. "I want to understand everything. Teach us more. Teach us how to think like this, how to fight like this, how to survive anywhere." Jarek smiled faintly. "Good. The next step is not just survival. It is strategy. We will hit them where they do not expect it. We will turn their confidence into weakness, and when the final strike comes, we will be ready." Over the next few days, humans and Lyrathi worked tirelessly. They reinforced cities, mapped escape routes, and set hidden traps throughout forests, swamps, and cliffs. Training sessions continued, turning Lyrathi civilians into skilled warriors capable of surviving and fighting alongside humans. Finally, the moment came. The Zirvax launched a massive assault, bringing everything they had. But humans and Lyrathi were ready. The counteroffensive had turned Cyrithia itself into a fortress. Every hazard was a trap, every path a challenge, every natural danger a weapon. The humans led daring raids on enemy command units, sabotaging ships and cutting supply lines. They struck from above, below, and all around, using speed, strategy, and lethal precision. The Lyrathi, once fragile and fearful, now fought with courage and skill, inspired by the humans and confident in their abilities. The tide of battle turned. The Zirvax, confident and ruthless, found themselves struggling to survive against a planet fully weaponized by humans and their allies. They had underestimated not only Cyrithia but also the intelligence, adaptability, and courage of its defenders. By the end of the confrontation, the Zirvax were forced to retreat once again, severely weakened and demoralized. The humans and Lyrathi had not just defended their world, they had proven that even the deadliest threat could be overcome with courage, strategy, and determination. As night fell over Cyrithia, the humans stood silently, surveying the battlefield. The planet was scarred, the air thick with smoke, but the Lyrathi cities remained safe. The first major victory had been won, not by raw strength alone, but by turning the impossible into an advantage. Jarek looked at Taryn and Silen. "This is only the beginning. But you have learned something important. Survival is not just about living. It is about thinking, adapting, and never giving up. Today you survived. Tomorrow you will fight even smarter. Terran nodded, eyes bright. We will fight, and we will win. Because of what you have shown us, we know it is possible. The humans, the Deathworlders, had shown the galaxy what others had failed to see. Humans could survive anywhere, adapt to any danger, and inspire hope in even the most desperate civilizations. And far above the battlefield, the stars seemed to watch, glimmering as if recognizing that Cyrithia had become a symbol. A world where courage, ingenuity, and human resilience had changed the course of history. The war was not over, but the turning point had been reached. Humanity had proven once again that when they answered a call for help, even the most hopeless world could become a place of survival, hope, and strength. The final assault began before dawn. The Zirvacs, enraged and desperate, launched everything they had left at Cyrithia. Ships darkened the sky. Soldiers advanced through the forests, and energy weapons cut the morning mist like knives. But the humans, the Deathworlders, were ready. Every trap had been reinforced, every pathway analyzed, and every squad positioned. Cyrithia itself had become a fortress. Commander Jarek Thorne stood on a high ridge watching the enemy approach. "Today we finish this," he said, voice calm and commanding. "Stay alert, follow the plan, and remember, Cyrithia is not helpless. We are its strength." Mara's sensors lit up with movement. Multiple Zervax command units detected near the central city. They are trying to coordinate the strike. This is their last chance to win. Jarek nodded. Good. We'll make sure it's their last chance, period. The humans moved with precision, flanking enemy units, luring soldiers into traps, and striking from positions that seemed impossible to reach. Their movements were fluid, almost instinctive. Venomous swamps, razor-sharp rocks, and even the natural predators of Cyrithia were used strategically, coordinated by human squads and Lyrathi volunteers. Every danger became a tool, every hazard a weapon. In the city, Elira and Valus coordinated civilian safety, while Lyrathi fighters manned the walls and participated in the battle. The once fragile and fearful population now moved with confidence, striking alongside the humans with courage and skill. Terran directed a squad through a forested ridge. "Lead them into the trap," she instructed. "Use the terrain, the hazards. Remember what the humans taught you." The Zirvacs were shocked. Every advance was met with calculated resistance. Every strike seemed anticipated. The humans had not only adapted, they had transformed Cyrithia into a weapon, bending the world itself to their strategy. Rory led a daring raid on the enemy command center near the volcanic plains. Using hidden caves and natural tunnels, the team bypassed enemy guards and sabotaged power supplies. Explosions erupted, throwing the enemy into chaos. The Zirvacs were skilled, but they were not used to facing opponents who thought in harmony with their environment, who anticipated moves before they were made, and who used intelligence as much as strength. High above, human sharpshooters targeted key Zirvac soldiers, while the Lyrathi archers supported them from hidden towers. Kale coordinated with the ground teams, ensuring every strike weakened the enemy, while minimizing risk to civilians. Cyrithia itself seemed alive in the fight, every cliff, swamp, and forest acting as an ally. Hours into the battle, the Zirvacs made a desperate push toward the city center, hoping to break morale by attacking civilians. But humans anticipated this move. Yarrick and his team moved swiftly, using hidden traps and flanking maneuvers to cut off the attackers. The combined forces of humans and Lyrathi turned the enemy's strategy against them, driving them back into a narrow valley filled with natural hazards. Sylin, now confident and skilled, led a Lyrathi squad in the ambush. "Now!" she shouted. Energy barriers surged, nets dropped, and poisonous plants released their spores. The Zirvac soldiers were trapped, disoriented, and weakened. One by one, they fell. The humans and Lyrathi advanced, striking with precision. Even the Zirvac's commanders realized the battle was lost. Their troops were exhausted, scattered, and demoralized. The humans had turned every advantage of the enemy into a weakness. Every strategy had been countered. Cyrithia defenders had become a force stronger than the invaders expected. Jarek moved to the forefront with his most experienced squad. "Finish this," he commanded. "No hesitation, no mercy. Protect Cyrithia." In a coordinated final strike, humans and Lyrathi forces surged through the enemy ranks. Hidden explosives detonated, collapsing bridges and blocking retreat paths. Predators native to the planet, carefully guided by humans, ambushed stragglers. Zirvak's soldiers, who had believed themselves invincible, were overwhelmed by a combination of strategy, courage, and environmental mastery. Finally, the last Zirvak ship began retreating. Their army was broken. The survivors fled to orbit, leaving Cerithia intact. The humans and Lirathi stood together, breathing heavily but victorious. Elira stepped forward, tears in her eyes. You have saved us," she said, looking at Jarek and his team. "We never believed anyone could survive against them, but you not only survived, you turned Cerithia into a weapon. You are more than warriors. You are legends." Jarek shook his head. "We didn't do this alone. Your people fought bravely, learned quickly, and adapted to danger. You were willing to fight for your home. That is what made victory possible. Humans survive, yes, but only with allies worth protecting." Terran stepped beside Elira. "I understand now. Survival is not just strength. It is intelligence, adaptability, courage, and the willingness to fight for something greater than yourself." The humans, though weary, prepared to leave. Their mission was complete. Cerithia was safe, the Zirvaks had been repelled, and the Lirathi people had learned a lesson they would never forget. Courage and adaptability could overcome even the most deadly threats. Before departing, Jarek addressed the Lirathi population. "Your world is resilient. Your people are capable, and now you know that even in the face of the deadliest enemy, survival is possible. Remember this lesson, protect it, build on it, and never forget that humans will answer the call when others cannot." The Lirathi cheered. For the first time in memory, their fear was replaced with hope, pride, and gratitude. Humans had not just saved them, they had inspired them. As the Deathworlders lifted off, their ships disappearing into the stars, the Lirathi watched in awe. Stories of these extraordinary beings would spread across the galaxy. Tales of humans who could survive anywhere, adapt to any danger, and protect those in need would become legend. In the aftermath, Cerithia began to heal. The cities were repaired, and the forests and wetlands began to flourish once more. Lirathi soldiers continued training under human guidance, ensuring that they would never again be caught unprepared. The planet had changed, not just physically but culturally and spiritually. The Lirathi now understood the value of courage, strategy, and resilience in ways they never had before. Jarek, aboard his ship, watched the planet recede beneath the stars. "Another world saved," he said quietly. "Another lesson taught. The galaxy still underestimates humans, and that is their mistake." Mara smiled beside him. "Do you think they will remember us?" Jarek chuckled softly. "They will. They have seen what humans can do. They will tell stories of Deathworlders who thrived in the deadliest environments and turned impossible odds into victory. That is enough. That is how legends are made." Far above, the stars of Cerithia's system seemed to twinkle brighter, as if recognizing the courage, determination, and ingenuity of those who had fought for its survival. Humans had arrived as strangers, warriors of the deadliest worlds, and left as heroes, legends whose deeds would echo across the galaxy. For the Lirathi, hope had been reborn. For humanity, yet again, the impossible had been conquered. The story of Cerithia was only one of countless worlds where humans would leave their mark, an enduring testament to the strength, adaptability, and courage of mankind. And so, in the quiet aftermath of victory, the galaxy learned a lesson it would not soon forget. When humanity answers the call, no world is too deadly, no enemy too powerful, and no hope too small. Humans survive, humans adapt, humans endure. And in doing so, they inspire all who witness their courage to believe that even the most desperate situations can be overcome. The saga of Cerithia had ended. But the legend of humans, the Deathworlders and their unbreakable spirit, had only begun.